Stuart met with Beyond Stillness over the course of 7 weeks to articulate and publicly share this story of wisdom, purpose, connection, and hope. To learn more about our programs and services, or to sponsor a guest on their story crafting journey, please visit www.beyondstillness.org. This week on Beyond Stillness, Stories After Stroke, we welcome guest Stuart Abramson, who is a nephrologist, cyclist, father, and husband, and lives in Indianapolis, Indiana. Stuart survived 2 traumatic brain injuries, TBIs, that forced him to reroute all areas of his life. In this episode, Stuart shares ways he learned to adapt to the brain's disconnect while connecting with others more deeply. His story is entitled Finding My True North. Thank you for joining us for Part 1, Stuart Abramson's story.
Beyond Stillness, Stories After Stroke is made possible by our guests and tax-deductible donations from friends and listeners like you. Join us in empowering stroke survivors with stories of wisdom, purpose, connection, and hope at www.beyondstillness.org.
Hello and welcome to Beyond Stillness, Stories After Stroke. Stroke offers a powerful, life-changing shift in perspective. Each colorful memory creates a parable for life's greater teachings, a compass for journeys ahead, and inspired wisdom for unique growth. This podcast, Beyond Stillness, Stories After Stroke, offers a moment of pause for storytelling and reflection. Ultimately, Beyond Stillness is a welcoming environment that reveres the moment beyond stroke's paralysis. Still moments unite humanity and divinity. I'm your host, Molly Bucola. As we begin today, we'll take a moment of pause. A moment to ground ourselves in this time, in this space. Maybe paying attention to our breath, elongating the inhales and exhales. Today, Stuart talks about connection, reconnecting the pathways in our brains, and reconnecting with each other. So in this moment, we offer gratitude. Maybe think of one way your brain has reconnected. Why are you thankful for that reconnection? And now we think about one way we have reconnected with others. Maybe one individual person or a community of people. And with an inhale, offer that gratitude. And exhale it all out. And now, Stuart's story.
I used to pride myself on my sense of direction. Groups of cyclists used me as their compass. Routes would twist, turn, fold back into each other, and I always knew which way was north. It was my internal GPS. I was born with this unwavering sense of direction. Then on June 18th, 2011, I was racing with a group of 20 cyclists down a hill. The course was closed to motor vehicles, but suddenly a car turned left onto the course. It was going 15 miles per hour. We were going 30. Many of the cyclists ran straight into the back of the car, but I was the only one who needed an ambulance to the hospital. At first, I was not alert or able to answer questions. When my wife arrived, a nurse announced her visit and asked, "What is your wife's name?" I confidently replied, "Cindy." "No, your wife. What's your wife's name?" Again, but with a little more force, I responded, "Cindy." We still joke about this other woman named Cindy and how she must wonder where I went. My wife, whose name is Louise, thought I was going to be in the hospital overnight, but instead I was there for a week and a half. The race was in Connecticut, and at that time we lived in Maine. The kids stayed by themselves the whole time with support from our neighbors and friends. Our kids had just finished their senior, freshman, and eighth grade years. They prepared for summer camp on their own. Then our family friend brought them to camp in Massachusetts. I'm so thankful for the way our friends have helped throughout my recovery. I broke a number of bones, including my pelvis, 6 ribs, clavicle, and I required a short stay in the ICU. Even though I could not remember my wife's name, the medical professionals were not worried that I might have had a traumatic brain injury, TBI. Once I could stand with a walker, I was sent home. I found that the doctors and people in general focus on parts they can see broken and know how to fix. The brain is complicated and much of it is unexplored territory. I've learned that it takes a lot of time to figure out what is broken and how to live with the changes. 3 months later, I was able to walk with crutches and pick things up. By the time my body began to heal, I started to realize that, among other things, I could not remember people's names. My first day back at work as a nephrologist, a kidney doctor, I was able to work for only 45 minutes, and then I needed to go home to rest. I remember that day so clearly. I saw one patient and was so exhausted that I could barely walk out of the office. I was not ready to return to work until I rested for 3 full days. When I returned to work, at that point, I would see just one patient, then rest for 3 more days. I have since learned the brain needs lots of rest in recovery. Over the next 3 years, I slowly improved my memory and problem-solving skills. I learned to adjust my behavior to compensate for my deficits. I would write everyone's name down, even the people I knew well. I would then write a description next to their names. This helped with future communication and connections. At work, Louise and I drew a map of where all the office staff sat and then noted their names. 3 people do check-in, 1 does check-out, 3 medical assistants, 6 nurses, and 1 office manager. With the map, I was able to remember who they were, what they did, and what their names were. It helped me feel more connected with the office, and then I enjoyed going there. They were happy to see me and excited when I greeted them by name. They knew that I had difficulty with names and that I might get it wrong, so they lightheartedly teased me and gave me time to remember. It was like our game. Some people aren't as understanding and get upset when I don't remember their names. They feel insulted. The last thing I want to do is insult people. I already felt disconnected and didn't want others to feel that way too. So I adapted and worked on ways to remember names and conversations. I wanted to cultivate relationships. It was difficult to do, so when I was tired and couldn't even remember names of long-term friends and lose coworkers, disconnection felt like it was permeating my life. I lived in Boston for 6 years. During that time, I spent many hours wandering around Beacon Hill, the Public Garden, and the Commons. Thinking about that area while living in Maine after my TBI, I still could see those areas and how they connected. 2 years after my injury, I had the opportunity to visit Boston for the first time and since my injury. I had the opportunity to wander the same streets, and I was dismayed that the streets looked like I remembered, but they were like a puzzle with pieces after someone had dumped them out of the box. Nothing connected like it should. I was lost in a place that I knew so well. After walking from Beacon Hill to the public gardens, I was completely exhausted and needed to take the whole afternoon off, sleeping and resting inside and away from my images of Boston. As I said before, I used to pride myself on my sense of direction. It was tough for me to lose it. And at that point, I was looking for my true north in more ways than one. I moved from Portland, Maine to Indianapolis in March 2020, just as COVID was shutting everything down. I became isolated as it took me so long to get to know people. I'd get lost walking home. I couldn't even remember the way around in my own neighborhood. Our whole world was living in isolation. By that point, I was really struggling. I was in a new city, working at a new hospital, and really struggling to learn new names, masked faces, and spaces. There was too much change. On March 3rd, 2021, I had another setback. I was biking and ran into a sign that had been placed smack dab in the middle of the path. I spent 7 days in the hospital, including 1 day in the ICU. My wife tells me that I went to rehab, but was sent home within 24 hours as I wasn't willing to sit quietly in my room, but walked around the facility. I have no memory of the next 3 to 4 months. For the first year after my second accident, I set my sights on getting back to where I was before the accident. Now I've learned to adjust my comparisons and start to focus on the positives. I stopped comparing what I could do before the brain injury versus after. I started comparing my abilities to those early in recovery. I gave myself permission to be proud about getting through a half day of work rather than depressed by not being able to complete a full day of work. Really, there had been a shift in mindset. My whole life was rerouting. Now I'm trying to figure out my new north. I've been discombobulated, disoriented, disconnected. It was tough to lose my sense of direction and spot in life. I'm starting to see that new types of groups are looking to me for direction. I'm learning to adjust to and appreciate connections I've made since my TBI. I've learned a lot about myself and others through the recovery process. I've learned that when I reach a dead end, a place that feels constricted and depressed, I need to do something differently. I'm learning to adapt to my new set of abilities, finding new ways to connect with others. I want to still be productive, but I also want to make a difference or feel like my actions are important. Now I know how to do that. I recognize that my sense of isolation has become a strength. Now I recognize the worry, loneliness, and isolation in others and work to address that by connecting, truly connecting whenever I find the opportunity. And I see more opportunities for connection these days. Now that I'm moving at a slower pace, I notice and empathize with others. In a lot of ways, connection is not verbal. I utilize eye contact. There's a deep feeling of being seen and heard when eyes connect. I speak slower now. My brain injury forced that, but I've heard that it creates a more peaceful and welcoming environment. People tell me more about their own lives now. My cyclist friends and I talk about life rather than gears and dreams rather than technique. Now that we can't ride together, we are connected on a human level. My ability to hear emotion by the speech pattern and tone of voice has increased. I now recognize this part of my empathic response to people. I hear them, wonder, ask questions, and make connections. As a doctor, I devote so much more attention to each patient. Due to my reduced workload, I get to spend extra time preparing for our interactions, conversing with them in the office, and contemplating their cases. Each appointment is like a mini reunion. Their charts tell me their name, age, health issues, but now I note their worries, support, upcoming holidays, special occasions. It takes time to ask for updates during their next visit. I also tell them more about myself. My parents often are on 10 or more medications a day. We discuss the difficulty and importance of remembering to take each medication on time. I now know from personal experience the vulnerabilities of health obstacles. I do believe that in many ways, I'm a better physician as I've become a more experienced patient. There's something powerful about knowing, trusting, and connecting with others while in recovery. I've been part of the Bridging the Gap support group on a regular basis for about 2 years now. It's so aptly named Bridging the Gap. The group had become essential as I worked through issues: increased fatigue, depression, memory loss, loss of coordination, isolation, loneliness, lack of people who knew what it meant to be a TBI survivor. This group was and continues to be key in my perspective shift. We all need to be heard, understood, known, loved, and connected. This group has offered such to me and has helped me practice creating that space for others too. I've become a facilitator for the group, and we are introducing a new meeting process, one that is more conversation-based, so that we can connect more deeply. We are rerouting. I used to pride myself on my sense of direction. Groups used to use me as their compass. I always knew which way was north. I worked hard to become a proficient cyclist, doctor, husband, and dad. It was tough for me to lose sight of that spot. It was disorienting, discombobulating, disheartening, and so isolating. The brain is complex. I felt my brain betrayed me and disconnected me from everything I knew. But then, when I thought I had reached a dead end, my brain did something amazing. It rerouted, reconnected in a new way. It showed me new ways of seeing things, interacting with people, and navigating this life. It gave me new opportunities, offered depth and purpose. It is healing. It is healing slowly, but it's still healing. And in big ways, it's healing my relationships with the world, others, and myself. I love my brain. Together, we are rerouting. We are finding our true north. And I am quite certain I was born with this sense of direction.
Thank you, Stuart. We'll close with a moment of pause, calling to mind the words that Stuart has shared, thinking about ways that we have learned to navigate, to find our own true north. Think about the moments that felt disorienting, discombobulating, and ways we got through. Think about those moments that we rerouted. Think about one thing that you can offer this world, one experience that you too could turn into a gift. Today we offer thanks for the moments of pause, the moments of connection, the moments of rerouting and growth.
Beyond Stillness, Stories After Stroke is made possible by our guests and tax-deductible donations from friends and listeners like you. Join us in empowering stroke survivors with stories of wisdom, purpose, connection, and hope at www.beyondstillness.org. Another way to support is to like, share, or subscribe to our weekly show.
Thank you for devoting time and space to listen to Part 1, Stuart Abramson's story. Stick with us for Part 2, Stuart Abramson's interview. Each colorful memory creates a parable for life's greater teachings, a compass for journeys ahead, and inspired wisdom for unique growth. In this episode of Beyond Stillness, Stories After Stroke, we heard from guest Stuart Abramson, who suffered 2 traumatic brain injuries. Stuart shared stories about his challenges of mental and social disconnect, while also sharing ways he's learned to adapt and connect with others more deeply. Stuart's story was entitled Finding My True North. Thanks for listening, and remember, as part of the stroke and TBI community, you are more than supportive. You are inspirational. If you found value in today's episode, please like, share, subscribe, or leave a review so others can find these inspiring stories too.